At my daughter's birthday party, she made me sit outside with the kids. She said, "The tables inside are for dignitaries." Sorry, Dad. Maybe in your next life, you could be a dignitary. I was surprised and left immediately. What happened next was rather unbelievable. I will tell you everything. First, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Ray Cadwell from New York. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. People always say a parent's love is unconditional, but they never talk about respect. I had given my daughter everything she ever needed. Education at the finest schools, clothes tailored to perfection, every opportunity to rise, even when it meant I had to stay in the background. She thought it was because I had little to offer. She didn't know it was because I'd chosen to. Let her shine, I told myself. Let her feel powerful. It was the only way to ensure she never felt the poverty I once crawled through. She grew up thinking her success was self-made, and I let her believe that. This birthday, her 35th, I had planned something big. I'd prepared a video, footage from our early years, letters from her late mother, and at the end, a revelation. The family fortune, hidden behind shell companies and silent trusts, was hers. Over $30 million in real estate, liquid assets, and international holdings. She had no clue. She thought I lived modestly because I had to. She didn't know I wore frayed cuffs because I didn't need approval. I had told her I'd be coming to her party, and though her assistant's tone on the phone had been stiff, I brushed it off. The venue was a glass palace on the marina, strung with white lights and buzzing with names I'd only ever seen in newspapers. I arrived 5 minutes early, dressed in my best linen suit. I wasn't nervous. I was proud. I even had a small gift bag in hand, inside it, a USB drive containing the video. I pictured her tearing up, running to hug me in front of everyone. I'd say something quiet and fatherly. "It's always been yours, sweetheart." But the moment I stepped onto the terrace, something was off. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw the little girl who used to beg me to dance with her in the kitchen. Then it was gone, replaced by calculation. "Dad," she said, smiling wide but with no warmth. "Glad you made it. So, the thing is, this section is for dignitaries. You know, ambassadors, donors. Can you sit with the kids outside? There's shade." I froze. She was already turning to someone else, laughing, not noticing my silence. When I didn't move, she leaned in, brushing my arm. "Maybe in your next life, you could be a dignitary." That last part wasn't whispered. It was loud enough for the man beside her to chuckle. I walked through that party like a ghost. No one stopped me. No one offered me a drink. I saw my name on no place card. I sat for a minute near the pool where the kids splashed, but I couldn't feel my body. I'd spent years protecting her from pain, from reality, from loss. And now, here she was, slicing away my dignity with a smile. I stood up, left the gift on the chair, and walked out. In the car, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stared at the steering wheel for a long time before pulling out my phone. I opened the folder labeled Legacy, the video, the scans of the trust documents, the letters. My thumb hovered. Then I hit send. Attached was a message. It read, "Happy birthday. I had something for you tonight, but you already made your choice. You don't need my name, my story, or what I built. Consider this video a goodbye. The fortune is going elsewhere, to family who knows what that word means. I expected respect. You offered ridicule. I hope the table was worth it." Then I turned off my phone, drove home in silence, and poured a drink I hadn't touched in 15 years. She had no idea what she'd just lost. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my old leather chair, the one she used to climb into with me when thunder scared her. The house was quiet, too quiet. No TV, no phone, not even music. Just the hum of regret, or maybe rage, pulsing in my chest. I kept picturing her face, the casual cruelty of it. The way she'd turn back to her guests like I was a waiter who'd forgotten their drink order. Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed to life. Then again, and again. I didn't look right away. I knew what it was. The video would have landed like a grenade in a glass room. She had no idea about the fortune. I'd been meticulous in hiding it. Everything was in holding companies, trusts managed by a discreet attorney up north, and assets hidden under the radar. She probably thought I lived off a pension and a paid-off bungalow. When I finally checked, the messages were coming in hot. Dad, what is this? You're not serious, right? Tell me this is a joke. Can we please talk? Then came a voice note. Her voice, shaky, not the polished register she used at galas and business events. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. I was just trying to manage the event. Can we talk? Please. Manage the event. I set the phone down. She was trying to spin it already, turn her insult into a logistical mistake. I knew her patterns. She was always skilled at rephrasing the past to protect her present. I wasn't interested in narratives. I was interested in truth. Around 9 a.m., a knock came at the door. I opened it to find Jason, her cousin, my nephew, standing there looking half awake, hair a mess, holding a coffee and a donut like he'd been summoned from a dream. She told me, he said, about the inheritance, about the party. Man, he looked me over. You okay? I nodded, stepped aside. Come in. He sat at the kitchen table where I'd once taught him to do long division. She messed up, big time. I mean, what the hell was she thinking? She wasn't, I said. That's the point. He watched me for a while. Then, in a voice almost too soft to hear, are you really cutting her out? I didn't answer with words. I walked to the drawer, pulled out a thick manila envelope, and slid it across the table. Inside were the new documents, revised trusts, new beneficiary lists, asset transfers. Jason flipped through them like he was afraid the paper might burn. She's gonna lose her mind, he said. This changes everything. She made a decision, I said. So did I. The rest of the day was a blur. More messages, more voice notes. She even called Jason, asking him to plead on her behalf. I didn't respond. I wasn't playing chess anymore. I was done trying to strategize my love. Later that evening, I turned on the news and caught a glimpse of her on a red carpet, smiling for the cameras like nothing had happened. But I knew that smile now. It was a mask. The thing about humiliation is that it rarely comes in the moment. It lingers. It poisons memories, distorts your reflection. I wasn't just hurt. I was unmade. But for the first time in a long time, I felt clear. She had set a table for dignitaries. I was building a new table, one where love didn't come with conditions. It took exactly 48 hours for the fallout to start. By Monday morning, my attorney had processed the revised estate documents. Everything was in motion. I'd left nothing to interpretation. My daughter was no longer the primary heir. Every asset, every property, every dividend-bearing account had been reassigned. The bulk of it now belonged to my sister's sons, Jason and his younger brother Marcus, two boys who'd visited me every Thanksgiving, sent me handwritten cards on my birthday, and asked for nothing but time and stories. The attorney, Margaret Lynn, a sharp woman I'd trusted for over 20 years, looked me in the eye as I signed the last page. "You're sure about this?" she asked. "Yes," I said, steady. I've never been more certain. By the time I left her office, my phone had 17 missed calls and 3 voicemails. The most recent one was from her, and it started with a tremble. "Dad, I don't understand. I made a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just overwhelmed. The event was a lot, and I didn't think. Okay? I didn't know how much that moment mattered to you. Please, can we fix this?" That word, fix. She still thought this was patchable, like a business deal gone cold. But I wasn't a client. I was a father, stripped of his seat at his own daughter's table. I didn't reply. Instead, I emailed her a one-line confirmation. The documents are signed. The estate is settled. I wish you well. I didn't hear from her for 2 days. Then the media storm hit. Apparently, one of her advisors caught wind of the inheritance shift. A whisper turned into a leak, and the press did what it does best. It fed. Headlines popped up on business blogs, gossip sites, even mainstream news. CEO's father revokes multi-million-dollar inheritance, maybe in your next life, the comment that cost a fortune from heiress to outsider, the fall of a rising star. I watched it all in silence. My phone lit up with calls from reporters, old acquaintances, and even a few distant relatives suddenly curious about family matters. I declined every call. The one that finally got through was from Marcus, the quietest of the cousins. He never asked for anything, not even after his mother passed. Now, he sounded stunned. "Uncle, this is real?" he asked. "It's real. But why us? Because you still see me. That's all it took. He didn't know what to say after that, so he didn't say anything. Just breathed, slowly, into the phone. That night, I poured myself another drink and sat by the fireplace. I pulled out a yellowing photo from my drawer. Me holding my daughter at 4 years old, both of us laughing, frosting on her nose. I remembered that birthday. I'd baked the cake myself, burned the edges. She loved it anyway. I wondered what kind of woman she'd become if she hadn't learned to admire power more than people. I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. She hadn't just lost a fortune. She'd lost her history. And I was done waiting for her to realize what that cost. She showed up at my house the next morning. No warning, no call. Just the thump of her heels on the porch and a shadow through the frosted glass. I opened the door and there she stood, dressed not for a confrontation but a photo op, hair perfect, makeup light and strategic, wearing a soft beige coat that probably cost more than the car I drove in my 20s. "Dad," she said, voice trembling like she wanted it to sound real. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, but didn't answer. She walked in like it was still her home. Eyes scanning the pictures on the wall, the same ones she'd ignored for years. She didn't sit until I did. When she finally spoke, it was a performance, rehearsed down to the breath. "I didn't mean to disrespect you. I was managing a big event. It was chaotic. I wasn't thinking clearly." "That's your third excuse," I said calmly. "Which one do you want to stick with?" Her eyes flickered. She hadn't expected that. She always did better when she controlled the stage. She leaned forward. "Look, I know I messed up. But this public mess? The headlines? My board is asking questions. Clients are backing out of deals. This could ruin my career." And there it was. Not pain, not shame, just the fallout of losing face. "You're not here because you're sorry," I said. "You're here because you lost your mask. That's not fair. I watched you laugh at me in front of strangers." Her lips tightened. "I wasn't laughing at you. I was trying to keep things smooth. Keep the energy light. By calling your father undignified?" Silence. She stared at the floor, hands clenched. And for a moment, I thought I saw the little girl again, the one who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, who cried when I scraped my knee fixing her bike. But she was gone. "I've spent my life building you a future," I said. "And you built a world that didn't have room for me in it." Tears welled up, finally. Maybe real, maybe not. "I didn't know how much that moment meant to you. And I didn't know how little I meant to you." She looked around like the furniture might offer her help. When she finally stood, her voice cracked. "So that's it? You're just cutting me off? Throwing me away?" "No," I said. "You already threw me away. I'm just closing the door behind me." She left without another word. By the end of the week, her PR team went into overdrive. Articles popped up trying to reshape the narrative, suggesting I was a reclusive patriarch, erratic, maybe even mentally slipping. One headline read, "Inside the shocking split between a father and his fortune." My lawyer called. "You want to respond publicly?" "No," I said. "Let her write her version. Mine's already in motion." She underestimated one thing. My silence was never weakness. It was precision. The cousins, meanwhile, were uneasy. Jason called to say they were being approached by journalists and even distant relatives offering partnerships. "Should we talk to them?" he asked. "No, just stay quiet. This will pass." And it would. Public shame burns hot, then fades. But what lingered, what couldn't be undone, was the rift. The truth had landed. And now, she had to live in the house she built, one where loyalty bowed to status, and love came second to optics. I had once imagined giving her the world. Now, I was only glad I hadn't. She didn't go down quietly. After our last conversation, I half expected her to vanish into silence, lick her wounds behind her boardroom doors. But no, she came back swinging. Within a week, her damage control campaign had evolved into a full-on counteroffensive. If she couldn't win me back, she'd dismantle my credibility, make it seem like this fallout was my fault. The first interview aired on a Friday evening. She sat across from a journalist she clearly had wrapped around her finger, blinking away tears like a master. The set was staged, warm lighting, framed photos of us carefully placed behind her, even one of me holding her as a baby. A photo I knew she hadn't touched in over a decade. "It's been difficult," she said softly, hands clasped in her lap. My father and I were always close, but in recent years, he's become unpredictable, withdrawn, sometimes angry for no reason. I nearly laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was bold. She was rewriting history in real time, knowing most people would never hear my side. She continued, voice trembling perfectly. He's a proud man. I think losing relevance in my world of business, media, visibility, was hard on him. Maybe I didn't make enough room for him. But none of this was malicious. It was just a miscommunication. A misunderstanding that's now been twisted into a legacy decision I don't understand. Twisted. She made it sound like I'd gone senile, like the revised will was a rash act driven by bitterness. I shut off the TV halfway through the segment. Jason called minutes later. Did you see that? She's trying to turn the public against you. She's not trying, I said. She already is. The days that followed were a flurry of op-eds, think pieces, LinkedIn posts, and podcast segments. Everyone had a take. Some praised her vulnerability. Others hinted at the possibility that I was being manipulated by greedy relatives, a direct shot at Jason and Marcus. Even old family friends started calling, asking if I was doing okay. I'm fine, I said, over and over. But inside, I could feel it, the sting of invisibility returning. Not because I wasn't heard, but because my version didn't fit the story they wanted. Until one night, Jason knocked on my door again. This time, he wasn't just holding coffee. He had a laptop under his arm and eyes full of fire. We have to hit back, he said. This isn't just about you anymore. She's dragging us into this. Me, Marcus, even Aunt Lena's kids. She's saying we manipulated you into giving us the money. She's bluffing, I said. No, he said, flipping open his laptop. She's building a legal case. She filed a petition for financial review of your estate. I stared at the screen. A screenshot of the petition. Her signature at the bottom, dated 2 days ago. She wants to prove undue influence, he said. If she wins, the will could be contested. Frozen, maybe reversed. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to fury. Not because she was fighting for money, but because she was insulting my mind, my judgment, my agency. She wasn't trying to win me back anymore. She was trying to erase me. Get Margaret on the phone, I said, and tell her to bring every paper trail we've got. The next month was war. We filed a counter petition, complete with video documentation of my mental capacity evaluations, dated timestamps on all decision-making, and years of financial records proving I'd always been in control. My attorney released a quiet but pointed statement. Mr. Calderon has always acted with sound mind, and his estate decisions reflect both clarity and intention. And I stayed silent. Let her scream into the storm. Eventually, the headlines turned. Journalists started asking questions she couldn't spin. Photos emerged, her laughing beside lobbyists. Condescending emails leaked from former assistants. The public's sympathy began to sour. But the worst blow came from within. Her CFO resigned publicly, citing ethical concerns and personal misalignment with leadership values. That was the first domino. By the time her legal petition was dismissed, she had lost more than an inheritance. She'd lost trust, leverage, face, and I had my silence, my dignity, my peace. 6 months later, my home was quiet again, not from isolation, but from restoration. The chaos had passed. The lawsuits fizzled. The media lost interest, as it always does, the moment a newer scandal arrived. She hadn't spoken to me since the petition failed, not directly. The last I heard, she'd stepped down from her company to focus on personal healing. Translated, she'd lost her grip. I didn't gloat. There was no satisfaction in her fall, only clarity. I spent my mornings walking the garden trail behind my house, something I hadn't done in years. I'd pruned it back myself, trimmed the hedges, planted new lavender along the edges. It was work that reminded me of who I was before I became anyone's father, quiet, capable, content in solitude. One crisp Sunday evening, I hosted a dinner. Not for any occasion, just a meal with the people who had stayed. Jason, Marcus, their partners, and Aunt Lena's youngest, who flew in just to sit at my table. We grilled lamb chops, poured good wine, and filled the room with laughter that didn't need translation or approval. No photo ops. No curated conversations. Just family and food and time. At the center of the table, I placed the original photo, me holding my daughter as a child, her arms wrapped around my neck, her face lit up with trust. Jason noticed it first. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me, nodded, and passed the bread basket. When the plates were cleared and the night began to wind down, I stood up and raised my glass. To new beginnings, I said, and to tables where everyone knows your name. They clinked their glasses without a word. After they left, I sat alone in the quiet and replayed that birthday night. The sting of her words, the emptiness of that outdoor chair, the sound of laughter that wasn't meant for me. But now, the memory didn't hurt the same. It had transformed. Not into something warm, but something necessary. Boundaries aren't always built out of anger. Sometimes, they're the last act of love. She had made her choice, and I had made mine. I poured myself one final drink and walked through the house, switching off lights. When I got to my study, I opened the drawer where I'd once kept the video, the one she never watched until it was too late. I didn't need it anymore. I deleted the backup file, burned the printed letter. She knew now. And I was done needing her to understand. Outside, the wind rustled the trees, and I thought, dignity doesn't demand applause. It only needs a place to stand. This house, this piece was mine again, and I would never sit outside my own table again. If this story moved you, made you reflect, or reminded you of your own family dynamics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps bring more real, emotional stories like this to life. And who knows, the next one might just be yours. See you soon in the next story.